the School of Fiction.
Hi, this is Matt, and welcome to the School of Fiction channel, School of Fiction in session. And today I'm going to tell you about a sentence writing strategy that some of you are already using. But if you are trying to upgrade your style or trying to find something you're overdoing, this topic is for you. It's the magic of cumulative sentences. What is cumulative sentence? Well, it adds detail at the end of the sentence after what we call the main clause or the main part of the sentence. And this can be done with a variety of different phrases. Phrase, of course, a group of words that doesn't have the subject and verb pairing that a sentence would have. And I'll be giving examples imminently. That's what this video is about. But first, a random comedy slide. Une femme va dans une pharmacie pour acheter des produits amaigrissants pour 300 €. Elle demande au pharmacien combien va-je perdre avec ça? 300 €, répond le pharmacien. Okay, anyway, I think it's clean, promise. Anyway, I'm Matt Posner, indie author with over 30 years teaching writing in the classroom. I'm also a grammar expert. When you tutor and teach in SAT prep, you have to be that. And I'm going to note, however, as I talk about grammatical terminology, that you may have a little difficulty researching it under this style of expression. It's not that I'm wrong, but that when you Google it, you find a lot of stuff for Latin. And they often will say these things are about Latin, but there really isn't another word for them in English than what I'm giving you, or at least not a useful one. So they could be argued about, but as long as you are successful with your sentence writing, it doesn't matter. Okay. There are many types of phrases a cumulative sentence can have. I'm not covering all of them today. I'm covering specific ones. You can make a cumulative sentence as long as you want by adding more and more phrases and also subordinate clauses, examples to come. The only restriction is that your sentence must make grammatical sense. If it reads well and it's clear, you should be good. Currently, the most popular type of cumulative sentence is one that uses absolute phrases. So these are nominative absolutes, ablative absolutes, and combinations of both. I'm going to show you what all of this means, and you may well find you're already doing it. After you see the examples, compare to the authors you're reading. I'll bet that many of them, especially if they're recent writers, are using these. So let's go ahead with the starting point, which is the origins in Latin. So the term absolute as grammar is a Latin association. And they will find explanations based on Latin, but what I'm going to tell you is how to use this sort of stuff in the way that it's in contemporary style. I learned it from professors at the University of Alabama in the 90s. I don't think they are alive, so I will not spoil their legacy by mentioning them right now. But yeah, I did learn from professors, and here we go. So the absolute phrase in general is a participle without a helping verb. Most absolutes have the present participle, which is the ing form. And the examples that you see directly below here, the top two are ones that only have participles: running along the street, eating Cajun peanuts, as you see, Cajun spice peanuts, right? The bottom two have the helping verb, is running, will be eating. So those are not absolute phrases. Those are just sentence fragments. You have to put a noun in front of them. Now, you can also form an absolute with a past participle. In fact, most translations of the Latin absolutes are going to be like that. That's the ed form, and it's often the same as the past tense, except for irregular verbs. Those also count for absolutes, but they are less common in English, or at least less common in contemporary style. So I'm focusing on the present participles like running and eating. Boom. Next, how to add the absolute to the sentence. If you want to show an additional simultaneous action, you can use what's called the ablative absolute, which is just the participle and whatever other wording that comes after it you need for your idea to be clear. Dan ate a pizza, savoring every slice. So there is savoring, and that is a present participle. And then every slice is the rest of what you need to say. Now let's go from Dan to Larissa. Larissa is a test quiz. So Larissa finished the test rapidly, the main part of the sentence, completing the questions with ease. And there we go. Completing is your present participle. And as you can see in both cases, the action in the ablative absolute is simultaneous. So Dan is eating and savoring at the same time. Larissa is finishing the test by answering the questions. So these are all simultaneous actions, and that's what we want. Now, how many ablative absolutes can you have? Answer, as many as you want, as long as it makes sense. In the example on the right, I have 2 ablative absolutes and also a subordinate clause. You may not have heard the term subordinate clause before, or you may have. It doesn't really matter because one way or the other, you know how to do it. So Dan ate a pizza. First ablative absolute says savoring every slice. The second one says licking his lips with joy. The third one says feeling. So there's our 3 participles, savoring, licking, and feeling. And after that, feeling that this was the best meal of his entire life. The that is implied. So this is really a subordinate clause here. And this is, of course, a sentence that all of you are capable of writing. Quid means what? Yeah. Okay, there we go. Next. The nominative absolute is an ablative absolute with another noun in front of it. And you would do this if the additional, supposedly simultaneous action, is performed by some other person or object than the subject of the clause that it is describing. So, done by someone else. Larissa finished the test rapidly, and it's her pencil moving smoothly across the answer sheet. So if we had an ablative absolute, it would just say moving smoothly across the answer sheet, but of course that's not Larissa, that's the pencil. So we're putting pencil in front. Okay. Dan ate a pizza, so he's like, pizza. So it's, I'm sorry, channeling Cookie Monster there. His lips are smacking with every bite. It's not Dan smacking with every bite, it's his lips. So we're making these nominative absolutes instead. And you can also put both types of absolute into your sentence writing. And here's basically combinations of what we said before. I took the absolutes from both types and mixed them together, which works because I planned it that way. Okay, Dan ate a pizza, savoring every slice, his lips smacking with every bite. Larissa finished the test rapidly, completing the test with ease, her pencil moving smoothly across the answer sheet. There we go. So it's all the things you saw before. It's just that they're put together, and of course they have to be in a specific order. The nominative absolutes need to come after the ablative absolutes because you're essentially changing the subject. And it would be confusing otherwise. Dan ate a pizza, savoring every slice, his lips smacking with every bite is the correct one that we just saw on the previous slide. If you switch them around, it doesn't make sense. So listen to this. Dan ate a pizza, his lips smacking with every bite, savoring every slice. That implies that the lips are savoring the slice, but it's not the lips. Lips don't have emotions, so they can't savor. It is Dan who is savoring. So savoring every slice needs to be closer to Dan. There we are with that. Quid? Yes, indeed. There's Larissa. Sorry, Larissa. Can I use absolutes in the middle of a sentence also at the beginning? 100% yes, you can do that. No, it's not or farming. It is making what's called a periodic sentence. I learned it that there's periodic and cumulative sentences, and the difference is just where your phrases, such as absolutes, not limited to absolutes, where your phrases go. If they're at the end, it's cumulative. If they're anywhere else, it is periodic. So here we go. Larissa finished the test, rapidly completing the questions with ease. Her pencil moving smoothly across the answer sheet. That was our original cumulative sentence. But now it's moved to the middle because I added another subordinate clause. And in the end, she got every single question wrong. Larissa is sad. That's okay. She'll get them all right on the next test. Rapidly completing the questions with ease, Larissa finished the test, her pencil moving smoothly across the answer sheet. So in this one, the absolute, this is an ablative absolute, is at the beginning only. Oh, no, sorry. The ablative absolute is at the beginning, and then the nominative absolute is at the end. So is that a periodic or cumulative? I guess technically it's a cumulative, but who cares? You can do that. Moving on. So let's go over to contemporary fiction writers and how they do it. And I chose Sarah J. Maas as an example. I did not want to take a copyrighted picture of Sarah J. Maas, so I made this fake picture of someone that kind of fits the description of Sarah J. Maas, but isn't her. Anyway, Sarah J. Maas is a best-selling author. She has a lot of books, and she does really have very much the contemporary popular fiction writing style. I was able to find this within the first couple of pages of her first best-selling novel, A Court of Thorns and Roses. There we go. The wolf shot from the brush in a flash of gray and white. Okay, so far so good. Regular sentence. His yellow fangs gleaming. Boom, nominative absolute. Good job, Sarah. on that. I don't actually know her, by the way. Sorry, I just saying that. Okay. He barked in pain, releasing the doe's neck as his blood sprayed on the snow. So Ruby Bright. An excellent cumulative sentence. He barked in pain is the main sentence. Releasing the doe's neck. There we go, which is an ablative absolute. And then a subordinate clause as his blood sprayed on the snow. And then we have so Ruby Bright, which is attached with an M dash. People have been saying lately that M dashes mean AI writing. I don't think Sarah J. Maas used an AI to do this writing. I think this book came out before AI was really a thing for authors. I don't know the year, but the book's been around for a while. So Ruby Bright is actually her style. Good job. Anyway, to summarize, in the first example, we have a nominative absolute, his yellow fangs gleaming, which goes back to reference the wolf, of course. It's the fangs belong to that wolf. And the second example, releasing the doe's neck, also describes the wolf. And that is a ablative absolute. And this one, it would be a cumulative sentence also, or it could also be interpreted as a complex sentence. Sorry, as a complex sentence. Let's move on. Okay. Now let's talk about timing here. What is Sarah J. Maas up to? She's up to expanding the lushness of her language by having multiple things occur at the same time. So in the sentence one, see the big red one, the wolf shot from the brush in a flash of gray and white and black, his yellow fangs gleaming. The nominative absolute is successful here because the action is simultaneous. The fangs gleam before, during, and after the charge of the wolf. They are in a continual state of gleaming. That was set as green 2, going up to pink 3. Second sentence, he barked in pain, releasing the doe's neck as his blood sprayed on the snow. So Ruby Bright, going down to blue 4. In the second sentence, the time relationship is less clear. Most likely the wolf barks in pain and then it releases the doe while the blood simultaneously sprays onto the snow. This, in terms of sentence structure, most readers are going to be just fine with this. They don't mind if absolutes are used to indicate time sequence rather than simultaneity. And you can also do that. I think simultaneity works better. So for me, as a stylist on the personal level, I would not be as inclined to write this, but you'll see some examples of mine so you can make fun of me in a moment. Okay. In fact, one of mine is coming up after this slide. Generally, and I've never used AI to illustrate this scene from one of my novels before. So yeah, it's nice to do that. Generally speaking, long sentences will slow the reader's pace. So cumulative sentences are pace slowers in general, not necessarily in the sentences we just read from Sarah J. Maas, though. It's ironic that most novelists these days use cumulative sentences for action, but they are trying to make this kind of rich and complex, lush feeling to the language. I don't blame them, and I also have done it. So here's an example, next slide from one of mine. Okay. This is, I've never spoken these words out loud before, from The War Against Love, the third of my School of the Ages novels. Let us in, little one, Helen called through the window, bringing my main focus from my magical visualization to my human senses. The house cylinders and my personal defenses remained in my mind, buzzing like circling flies while I took stock of my surroundings. Peter was on the phone. Okay. So, bringing my main focus is the action performed by Helen when she calls through the window to taunt Simon. Poor Simon. Yeah, he has a real issue with Helen. She really kicked his butt in the previous combat. And also pretty much, and this one's not going to go much better. The house cylinders and personal defenses, there's your main clause again. And then buzzing like circling flies, which is yet another ablative absolute, and then a subordinate clause while I took stock of my surroundings. And then Peter was on the phone is a simple sentence. So we have a cumulative sentence, a complex periodic sentence, and a simple sentence. And the pace should not be slow on this because of the sentence variety, because they're not all the same type of sentence. So that gives kind of an up and down, bouncy feeling to the action. At least that's the goal. Right? So I encourage you to use absolutes in your sentence writing. I am talking about pacing here, but I'm saying think about it. So longer sentences are designed to make your reader slow down and think about their contents. That's not what Sarah Maas was doing, and of course her sentences are successful. But just as a general principle, long sentences, slower reading pace. And I don't mean slower reading pace is bad. Sometimes you want to read slowly and you want to think a lot. So it just depends on what your goal is this particular moment. This is the current cover of that book. Okay. Here's a longer narrative by me, so you can see the sentence variety and look for more of these absolutes in effect. Leo bounced off the cape, but ripped through it with his claws. I couldn't see Arnaud's face or his hands behind the cape in the darkness, so I tried to visualize them as I had last seen them more than half a year ago. Scorpion stings in the hands and the eyes. Maybe they didn't hit solidly, but they hit him, and he wailed something in Arabic. Leo clawed the protective cape, and I reached behind me. Cool air on my palm preceded the arrival of a rock. I rushed up and began pounding him with it. Then he lashed out hard, catching me on the jaw and throwing off Leo as well. There's our first absolute. It is a compound ablative absolute. The blow shocked me enough that I lost the cylinder of eyes around the house, exposing the fire, another ablative absolute. Both of these indicate either time sequence or simultaneity, as you wish. Someone outside yelled, and the cats yelled. More bangs downstairs. I fell to the floor on my side, jammed my elbow badly, lost my grip on the rock. I left out the and. It's a compound sentence without the and. Not really a run-on because that's done for pacing. Okay. Arnaud was up now and looming over me, his torn cape over his face. That is actually also an absolute. The participle has been left out, but it still counts as a nominative absolute. Leaving his eyes free, an ablative absolute, which refers to the cape being gone. They had to be hurting still. It's because Simon actually put he put the scorpion sting in the eyes. All right, so there we go. Look at the sentence variety here. First sentence, a compound. Second sentence, compound. All right. Third sentence, a fragment. Scorpion stings in the hands, in the eyes. Sentence fragments are fast-paced. Right? Compound sentence again. Then after that, another compound sentence, because these are indicating relationships in sequence. Then a simple sentence. That one is written as a passive construction, and passive constructions are to be avoided in profusion, but again, it gives some variety. Right. Then we have a simple sentence. Right. Then we have our first cumulative sentence, which I already pointed out to you. Then he lashed out hard, right, with the catching and throwing. Leo, by the way, is a Maine Coon cat. The blow shocked me enough, right, so that I lost a cylinder of eyes, exposing the fire. So this is a complex sentence. We have a subordinate clause. That I lost the cylinder of eyes around the house. Then it becomes cumulative as well, exposing the fire by adding that ablative absolute. Compound sentence, fragment. Another sentence that I analyzed already, the compound without the and. And then the last one I already talked about. So here, with a lot of sentence variety, you get action writing, which has a feeling of ebb and flow, and makes good use of the absolutes selectively. When you need to indicate a kind of a flash of multiple things happening at once. Okay. So sentence structure is a huge topic, so I want to encourage you either to email me the questions at the email you see here, or write them in the comments for this video. I am totally ready to answer questions. Any type of questions you want to ask me about writing, I'm up for that. If you want to criticize me, you can do that too. It'll be nice. And that's basically it, except for the credits. And here they are. I used AI for the art, but the book cover is not AI. That was a paid professional design. Thank you very much. And I hope you enjoyed this video. And again, I'm looking forward to your questions. Please like and subscribe.
The School of Fiction.